Yo. Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep it kind of simple today. Okay. All right. What the hell? Oh, well, I think I'm gonna do. Jesus Christ, that freaked me out. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna play a game today. I don't really want to react to any videos. Sometimes politics get a little bit kind of burn you out, right? And what could be said at this point that hasn't been said already? As you guys all know, there's been some pretty big developments lately. Um, Everybody's talked about it. Here's, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but here's the bottom line. Bottom line is that conservatives for years, uh, you know, during Gamergate, pushed back against concept of having cancel culture, about a culture being able to enforce standards of behavior and, making things that were taboo, that were past the pale, beyond the pale. And they were for like unfettered, unrestricted free speech. And at that time period, the free speech that they were fighting for was like the freedom of speech on the internet to be racist, to be sexist, to be homophobic, to be transphobic, to spread misinformation and stuff like that. And now you see that they're trying to cancel people for criticizing them. And this is something that I had said for pretty much the entire time, which was that if you're old enough to remember, you know that conservatives were never against cancel culture. What really happened was that they felt like they were starting to lose the dominant culture, that liberals and progressives were becoming the more popular dominant culture in society. And so they were going to be the ones with more cultural cachet, more ability to dictate, what is and isn't, beyond the pale, what is and isn't normal. And let me turn the volume down on this a little bit. And so I think what everybody's rediscovering is that there is free speech you have with the government, of course, with the First Amendment, and you shouldn't have the government come in and dictate, what you're allowed to say or not. It's interesting because the Democrats never actually advocated for the government to actually do anything. But now that Trump's in office and Charlie Kirk died, and there's people that have been, I guess, insensitive or mean about it, they actually want to, they have actually said, like Pan Bondi has said, that they said that they're going to use the DOJ to actually go after people for, I guess, mocking his death, which a lot of the people that are saying people are mocking Charlie Kirk's death, there's a lot of people that aren't mocking his death so much as they're just saying that they didn't like him as a person, which I think you should be allowed to do. There's a difference between celebrating someone's death, inciting violence, and just saying, hey, this person who died, I don't think they're a great person, and I don't really care. I'm not gonna shed a tear or anything because they were mean to me. They were against people like me. I didn't like their opinion. Whatever reason, you don't have to have a good reason. Honestly, I mean, it's your right not to. Whether or not you're a good person is up for the public to decide. And this is an argument that I made for years about freedom of speech, which is the idea that the founding fathers took freedom of speech and they took it and they put a barrier between freedom of speech and the government. The government cannot infringe on your free speech. In the absence of government setting standards around speech and conduct and behavior, by default, right? And I think even the founders express ideas like this, although I'd have to go look and try to fish up the quotes on it and everything. But from a philosophical standpoint, it then becomes up for the public to decide themselves how they're going to police themselves. And what that means is, or what it doesn't mean is, it doesn't mean other people can violate your rights. They can't kill you for your speech. Okay? So that happened to Charlie Kirk, right? You're not allowed to do that. You can't kill people for their speech. You can't beat people up for their speech. You can't steal their stuff. You can't deface their property over their speech. You shouldn't be allowed to do any of those things because those are all things that are violating the other person's rights. But you have freedom of association. You could decide, I don't like this group of people. I don't like the behavior of this person. I don't like the ideas that they express, and I want to form my community separate from them. I don't want to engage with them. You're allowed to do that. The founding fathers put that in the Constitution, in the First Amendment, for a reason. The people should be allowed to themselves decide how they want to dictate their culture, how they want to, you know, police. And when I say police, I don't mean literally police, but I just mean like, you don't have to hang out with people that you don't like. You could decide that if someone is a rude asshole, you don't have to invite them to your family get-together. You don't have to invite them to your group. You don't have to live next to them. You don't have to do those things. The government is not allowed to infringe on your freedom of speech. The government cannot tell you what is right or wrong to think or to say. But people themselves can decide to vote with their associations and with their dollars. They're allowed to themselves kind of put boundaries around what is acceptable behavior. Not boundaries that infringe on the other person's rights, but boundaries in the sense that I am an individual free person. I do not have to hang out with you. I do not have to share my resources with you. I don't have to endorse your speech. I don't have to use my social media platform to host ideas that I disagree with. By the way, the whole Citizens United case about money and politics, about the idea that you have a fundamental right as an American to decide to use your resources to support the ideas and to oppose, you know, to when you do politics, when you lobby, you are both supporting and you're opposing different kinds of policies or ideas that you don't like. You have a fundamental right as an American that we never talk about. You have an absolute fundamental right as an American to decide, I do not want to use my resources to help you push ideas that I disagree with. In fact, I can use my resources to oppose your ideas, to oppose your policies, to campaign against them. Over the years, when conservatives made the case that social media had to allow any speech, and it was always neo-Nazis, it was always white supremacists, it was always sexism, it was always like these ugly, evil things, right? Conservatives were, in essence, creating a culture in the United States that was saying, basically, you do not have the right to use your resources to oppose things that you disagree with. And it was hypocritical for them to do so, because they were more than happy to have the Citizens United case decided so that they can have their big money donors use their resources to oppose things like gay marriage, oppose things like the legalization of marijuana, oppose things like universal health care, right? When it came to them having power in government to oppose things, they were 100% in favor of the idea of being able to use your resources in a partisan manner. But when it came to social media, because they were starting to lose the culture, they then decided, actually, we don't want private industry, private social media sites, private communities to be able to decide what they want to use their platforms for. And I think that we need a revolution in the mindset, in the mentality, in the body politic in the United States to remember that principle. Remember the idea that you, as a free person in the world, you have a fundamental right to oppose things that you disagree with. That opposition does not mean killing people. It doesn't mean force. It doesn't mean stealing people's property. But what it does mean is that if you own a social media site, you can decide, I don't want to use it to support ideas that I think are bad for humanity, bad for society. And if another group decides, hey, we want to use our social media for that, then they can do so. And you saw that, by the way. You saw it when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and he was able to make Twitter the way he wanted to do it. You saw when Donald Trump created Truth Social, and Truth Social was a very right-wing community. You can have different social media sites that cater to different kinds of thoughts and different kinds of people, right? We can get back to that. And I think we're kind of moving back in that direction, because I think people have learned really the very hard way now that this idea that we can have like a free speech free-for-all and it's not going to have consequences in terms of ratcheting up tensions, in terms of, you know, creating a chilling effect, right? If you're in a community where all the people in the community are just constantly making fun of white people, I'm going to use white people as an example because, you know, I want to make it relatable to the audience. A lot of times it's framed in terms of like making fun of black people. But if you have a community where the entire time all they're doing is they're just shitting on white men over and over and over again, that white guy in that community, he doesn't feel like he has the ability to speak his mind. He doesn't feel like he has the ability to be himself in that community. He feels like that community is hostile to him. That is called the chilling effect. And the chilling effect applies to all, right? If you have communities that just spread anti-Semitism, Jewish people are not going to feel safe there. And they're not going to feel like they're able to speak up and be themselves. If you have a community that spreads sexism, women aren't going to feel like they're able to be safe, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. We are unfortunately rediscovering that idea, but we're rediscovering it the hard way. And part of the reason we're rediscovering it the hard way is because we have not had actual intelligent conversations around social issues or politics for the past 10, 15 years now. If you're old enough to remember, and a lot of you are not old enough to remember, our politics, and I don't even think you guys realize how dumbed down it is, our politics were not this stupid 10, 15 years ago. Go back and watch like the debates, the presidential debates from 2012, watch the ones from 2008, 2004, 2000, right? Our debates, not that they were great or anything, but we have actually, our ability to engage in critical thinking in our public discourse is incredibly, incredibly stupid at this point, and that's intentional. The people who are trying to kind of control things, they don't want people to have an honest, intelligent conversation anymore. They want to feed cheap, shallow talking points. So I want to play this game, so I want to wrap all this up. I want to say what I want to say on this topic, and I don't really want to deal with it anymore. Charlie Kirk, when he was alive, said that MLK was a bad person. He said that MLK wasn't a heroic figure, okay? MLK was a political figure. MLK was a social figure. MLK was important in many people's lives. But Charlie Kirk had the right to say, even though MLK was dead, Charlie Kirk had the right to say, I don't honor his legacy. I don't respect him. I don't like him. I disagree with Charlie when he said that. I do. But Charlie had the right to do that. You, as an American, have the right to say, I don't like Charlie Kirk. I think he was a bad person. I don't respect him. I don't think he was a hero. You have the right to say of dead people, I didn't like this person, and just because they died doesn't mean I have to pretend I like them anymore. And you should not let people bully you into forcing you to compel you to say or do something that isn't genuinely true of what you think and what you feel. Do not let people do that to you. That is not fair to you. That is an abusive, manipulative, control freak behavior that other people engage in. You do not have to like or respect other people who do not like or respect you. Okay? All that said, disclaimer, and I shouldn't have to disclaimer this because you guys should be adult and intelligent enough to understand this. That does not mean that you get to kill people. Doesn't mean you get to hurt people. Doesn't mean you get to issue threats of violence against people that you disagree with. But you don't have to respect them. You don't have to like them. Okay? All right. And then as far as the shooter goes, you know, everybody should know at this point, the majority of political violence in the United States, I think it's like it's like 2/3 of the political violence in the United States has been from the right wing. And the reality is people like to pretend like it's both sides. It really isn't both sides. I mean, you have political violence from the left, but it's very minuscule. It's something like 10%. I'm quoting the actual stats. I'm not just pulling numbers out of my ass. It's something like 10% of the political violence has been left-wingers over the years, and it's like 63% has been from the right. The reality is you look at the right, and I think if you're actually being completely honest with yourself, the right does engage in a lot of violent rhetoric. But part of the reason I think right-wingers won't acknowledge this is because I think the media they consume kind of pushes the idea that your average liberal, your average leftist is violent. And so in their mind, they're just defending themselves. So it's not really violence on their part. It's like a self-defense thing. But the numbers don't bear that out. I think if you take an objective look at American politics, it doesn't really bear that out. It's just the right kind of engaging constantly in defense and normalization of violence. You look at the right wing and they're constantly talking about the need for a civil war. They're constantly talking about stockpiling guns because they have fantasies of engaging in political violence to, make a revolution of the country, to take their country back or whatever. There's polling that shows you that this is the case, that it's something like 1/3 of Republicans believe that, they will need to take up arms to fix the country or whatever. That is a normalization of political violence. It's just a normalization of political violence that doesn't really register with people, but it is, right? Revolution is political violence. War is political violence. Civil war is political violence. Self-defense is violence. It sounds crazy. It sounds weird. It's a very nuanced thing to say. Not all violence is bad, right? Self-defense as violence is not bad. What Ukraine is doing and fighting off the Russians is not bad. If you get to a point, like the American Revolution where they're fighting for their freedom, that's not necessarily bad, right? The issue though is that when you're cavalier about it, when you're loose with it, when you're not careful about it, when you're not, violence should be your last resort. It should be for self-defense. It should be used for extreme situations. On the right, they are just constantly talking about civil war, constantly talking about stockpiling weapons so that they can go to war with the government, go to war with leftists, go to war with Marxists, things of that nature, right? Donald Trump constantly makes incitations to violence. He's, talked about paying people at his rallies to beat people up. He's talked about, having the military, having the police rough people up. He's talked about, stand back and stand by, and then his supporters actually do get violent, and then he pardons them. And, he's talked about with people that we're at war with overseas, like you have to go after their family, right? Going after their family, that's crazy. So violent rhetoric has been normalized on the right for a very long time, and I think most people are so used to it at this point, it doesn't even register, it doesn't even strike a chord, but it is the case, right, that it has been going on for a long time. Now, of course, there is going to be some left-wing violence. Of course, there's always going to be, in a population of 340 million plus people, you're always going to find examples of anything. This individual who killed Charlie Kirk, I've heard conflicting stories over the past couple days. I'm not going to do what I think a lot of people have been irresponsible in doing and pretend that I know what his ideology was. It's possible he was a left-winger, 100%. It's possible he was a griper, maybe. I don't know. It's possible that he was relatively apolitical. It's possible that I don't know. I've heard conflicting things. I don't know if his partner was transgender. I don't know if that's actually his partner. I don't know if it's his roommate. I don't know if it was just a friend of his. I actually don't know, and I don't trust the reports that have come out because people were saying that he was trans. People were saying that he was a minority. People were saying that he was an immigrant, and just all kinds of wild, crazy stories. He could be from the left. He could be from the right. That might sound crazy to you, right? But the shooter who shot at Donald Trump was from the right. Just to give you an example, there are different factions of the right, and there's some right-wingers who are more extreme than others, and who hate, different people on the right. So that's possible. He could be from the left. He could be from the right. He could have been mad at Charlie Kirk over trans issues. I don't know. He could be a groyper, which a groyper is a type of right-winger, but it's a type of right-winger who's even more extreme than in the Republican Party, and they consider the Republican Party to be traitors. Just to give you an idea, could be a libertarian, could be an anarchist. He could be a relatively apolitical person that just wanted to have the fame and notoriety. Could be somebody who was like an incel, or someone who was dejected from society, who just wanted to make a name for himself and take his anger out on the world. I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend to know. And I think it's really irresponsible for a lot of other people out there to decide, oh, it's this group or it's that group that I don't like, so I could put all the blame on them. It's even more irresponsible to say, hey, this individual person killed a person. Now we're going to go to civil war with an entire group of people, and we're going to blame all of them for the actions of this one individual. I saw a lot of that on social media. I think a lot of you have seen a lot of that on social media. That's not normal. I need you guys to understand that when you see friends, family, acquaintances that you have that are talking like that, we've allowed that to be normalized. That is not normal. It is not healthy, and it is not okay. People that say stuff like that are essentially calling for violence and war against you and people that you know and love. That is not okay. Those people do, frankly speaking, have a problem, and they need to check themselves and they look in the mirror. And that's pretty much everything I want to say on that. I don't want to linger on the topic. I'm, worn out over it and tired of hearing about it. And let's play some video games. Wait, what else is going on? Let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, maybe, right? I don't know if you guys heard. Apparently, NASA found what they believe might be. Now, this got a little bit misreported. People are saying that NASA found life on Mars. That's not the case. What NASA said was that they found structures. And here, let's look up something real fast, give you kind of an example. They said they found structures on Mars, like microscopic structures that they find hard to explain without it being like a byproduct of life, like simple-celled, single-cellular organisms, right? Because what you'll have is you'll have like certain chemical chains. You have like amino acids, you have proteins. These are things that living organisms build off of, and so you'll find sometimes specific combinations of chemicals in a certain like formation, making like a certain chemical structure, which you tend to see with animals, with biological, with cells, with organic structures. And so on Mars, they found like microscopic structures in the earth and the dirt in the samples that they took that looked a little bit peculiar. And I don't know actually if this is the same stuff that they're referring to. I don't know if you guys remember these images from a while back. And people were looking at this and they're like, oh, those look like worms. Those look like they could be some kind of organic, matter. Now, these weren't things that are alive, and the claims that NASA is making is not that there is currently life on Mars, but basically the idea that there could have potentially been life on Mars at one point, and not complex life. I'm talking like very simple, single-celled, like maybe like worm-like organisms, right? But it would still be like a huge, monumental scientific discovery if this happened to be the case. Now, when you look at something like this, to you it might look like a worm. There's a concept in psychology called is it pareidolia? Pareidolia is the psychological tendency to perceive a specific, often familiar pattern where none exists. The way that our brain interacts with our vision, it creates patterns. We see patterns in things. So, for example, these are good examples, right? These are not faces, but you guys see faces. Because your brain is trained to recognize faces. And so you see kind of those patterns in things. That's not an actual like human head, but it looks like the side profile of a human person's head, and so on and so forth, right? Is this a cloud that this looks AI gen? I don't believe this one, but yeah, I mean, you'll see things that look like patterns that you recognize, even if they are not necessarily that thing. So it's possible that on Mars, when you see structures like this in the dirt, in the sand, in the rock, whatever, yeah, maybe this is like a little worm. Maybe this is like a single-celled organism. Maybe it's a type of virus, right? Or maybe it's just totally non-living chemical structures that form. So, for example, in metallurgy, and like this comes up if you guys ever watch the show. There's a show where they make knives. I forgot what it's called, but they talk about like you have to heat things up to a certain temperature and then you bring it back down really quickly, right? These kind of procedures create different kinds of crystal lattices of molecules in the structure. And so certain things like something like work hardening, where you like maybe beat a piece of metal, and what you're doing is you're compacting that material. And if you do it hard enough, if you do it enough, you're gonna cause chemical recombinations of the crystalline lattice of carbon in the material. And so you'll get things like, or if you heat something up really quickly and then you immediately drop it into, I don't know, something that would cool down really quickly, something like nitro, what is it? What's that stuff? Like nitro, not nitroglycerin, but like nitrogen oxide, whatever that stuff that's like super cold, and then it freezes it really fast. You'll get different kinds of chemical lattice structures. So these examples are all in steel. Let's do this. Martin site, Austin site, ferrite, pearlite. These are all steels, but the grain of the steel, the formation of the crystal lattice of the molecules in the steel can vary depending on how you treat the steel. And so sometimes you might get very long chains of carbon molecules that line up in a row like this, versus maybe you get like spherical looking formations. And so you might produce, like, look at this. This is a really good example. Look at pearlite, for example, right? This is just steel, and this is just carbon formations in the steel. But you could imagine that on Mars, we might look at something like this, and if it wasn't, as uniform as this is, we just saw like little random formations of pearlite in nature. You might think like, oh, look at, maybe this was a worm from way, way back in the day, like a fossilized worm from thousands of years ago. And really, it's just a totally innocuous chemical formation that has no living anything to do with it, right? And so what NASA said basically is that they believe, they put out a press thing. We're going to read it in a minute here, actually. We'll look at it. I wonder if I'm getting killed at this point. Am I in a safe spot? So NASA was looking, and they were thinking to themselves, whoops, I did not mean to start Steam. Some of these structures look like the kind of structures that you see from microscopic small organisms. They don't know if that's true. They just put out a presser basically saying that after studying it for a while, we believe like there's a realistic possibility. And for NASA to say that, NASA are going to be the kind of people that would be highly, highly skeptical. But for them to do a whole study and then come back and say, hey, you know what? We can't rule it out. We've tried to rule it out and we can't rule it out. This may potentially very well be fossilized evidence of very simple life that existed on Mars at some point in its history. And I believe we've also confirmed at this point that there was water, like liquid water at one point on Mars. And so it's possible that, who knows, a couple million years ago, maybe a couple billion years ago, maybe the conditions were right on Mars that you were able to have simple organisms form, but they didn't last very long because then the conditions on Mars changed again, climate change happened, and it was inhospitable to life. It's possible, right? But let's look at this NASA press release. Let's see what they say. All right. A sample collected by NASA's Perseverance Mars rover from an ancient dry riverbed. Oh, interesting. So this was at a location that they believe used to be a riverbed. So this is where you would expect there to be life, right? Hold on a second. In Jezero Canyon, or crater. Curious what this looks like. I didn't know this. The other day I was messing around with Google Earth, and I didn't realize Google Earth now has, I think, like a whole Google Earth model of the moon, which is pretty cool. So this is that crater that they're talking about. So this isn't actually what it looks like right now, but this is supposed to be like a representation of at one point. This might have been what it looked like when it had water on the surface. Pretty big crater. I wonder how this formed. I wonder if this was like an asteroid that hit the Martian surface and created this depression here. So basically, this is kind of what it looks like now. This is probably a good image of it. I wonder what the size of this is. So we're looking at meters. 3 meters. What is 3 meters? About the size of a person, I think. How tall is a grown man in meters? Oh, I'm way off. I'm about 2 times. Okay. So 1,000. So if we line up about, I don't know, how many times does 1.7 go to 4? 2, 2.4, 2.5. I don't feel like doing math in my head right now. But this is probably, I don't know, let's say maybe this is like the size of like Lake Tahoe or something. That's just what my intuition's telling me right now. Okay. So, in an ancient dry riverbed in Jezero Crater could preserve evidence of ancient microbial life. So there we go. This isn't like Alien versus Predator. This isn't like Star Wars. This is microbial life. Small, simple life. Taken from a rock named Chayava Falls last year. Chayava Falls. There's a rock named Chayava Falls. Okay. The sample called Sapphire Canyon. They called it like this is so weird because it's like okay, I understand why they call it Sapphire. It's confusing the reader though. So like a scientist might take a sample and label it Sapphire Canyon because they might be saying like in their shorthand, this sample when we label it, this sample is from Sapphire Canyon. But it sounds weird if you don't really know what they're talking about. So it's called Sapphire Canyon, contains potential biosignatures according to a paper published Wednesday in the journal Nature. A potential biosignature is a substance or structure that might have a biological origin, but requires more data or further study before a conclusion can be reached about the absence or presence of life. The finding by Perseverance launched under President Trump in his first term is the closest we have ever come to discovering life on Mars. The identification of the potential biosignature on the red planet is a groundbreaking discovery and one that will advance our understanding of Mars. Well, I don't know if that's the case, right? Because we're still basically in the maybe phase. So, how is this groundbreaking and how is it advancing our understanding of Mars? We found a chemical structure in the ground. That's all we really definitively can say right now at this point. Okay, well, we expect to find different kinds of chemical structures, different kinds of material on Mars. What will actually change our understanding is if we can actually confirm whether or not that is from, some sort of like fossilized biological organism that lived there at one time. Said acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy, NASA's commitment to conducting gold standard science will continue as we pursue our goal of putting American boots on Mars' rocky soil. Who's this Sean Duffy guy? This might be a Trump. Oh, what the fuck? What does this guy have to do with NASA? Is this the same person? Okay, so this guy was installed by Trump. This is why, like, the terminology was already standing out to me as sounding like odd terminology for a scientist, but of course it's because it's no offense, but I mean, it's a Republican. They talk like this. They don't really have a good appreciation for the standards of science. So when he says, I mean, this part right here, this makes a lot of sense why he said this now. This is not something that sounds like something a responsible scientist would say, because it's overselling what they've discovered. It's not that groundbreaking, and it doesn't really change our understanding yet. It just can potentially be that, but more research needs to be done. And then saying gold standard science, it's like a meaningless phrase. It's like a hyperbolic marketing phrase. And then putting American boots on Mars. Like it's the phraseology here sounds like we're putting military on Mars rather than like trying to put humanity on Mars. It's like we're militarizing Mars. It's kind of weird. Okay. Leopard spots on reddish rock named Chaya Falls. Scientists think the spots may indicate that billions of years ago, the chemical reactions in this rock could have supported microbial life. Other explanations can be being considered. Okay, so a set of rock outcrops on the northern and southern edges of Neretva Vallis, an ancient river valley measuring a quarter mile. The finding is a direct result of NASA's efforts to strategic plan developed, blah, blah, blah. With the publication of peer-reviewed result, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm skimming through because I'm trying to get to any nugget of like actual interesting information here. So combination materials here. They are also rich in organic carbon, sulfur, oxidized iron, rust, and phosphorus. I believe phosphorus is necessary for life. I think there's like a phosphorus cycle, like there is a nitrogen or oxygen cycle. Is phosphorus necessary for life? Yes. Okay. It's fundamental in DNA and RNA and cell membranes. Okay. When they say organic carbon here, it doesn't mean like carbon from an animal, carbon from like a living organic organism. The reason that we have what they call organic chemistry, which revolves a lot around organic carbon, is that these are the kind of carbon structures that life builds upon. It's not that every time you see carbon, like organic strains of carbon, that it is part of a living organism. It's that living organisms are built largely off of organic carbon. So where you see organic carbon, you're likely to find like organic life. And I know that's kind of confusing because we're using organic in both of those cases there. But when we say organic carbon, we're referring to like a specific chemical structure of carbon that tends to, but not necessarily creates organic life. I know it's confusing, but they're not the same thing. The combination of chemical compounds we found in Bright Angel Formation could have been a rich source of energy for microbial metabolisms. But just because we saw all the compelling chemical signatures in the data doesn't mean we had a potential biosignature. We need to analyze what the data could mean. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Spirit colorful spots. The spots on the rock left behind by microbial could have been left behind by microbial life if it used the raw ingredients, the organic carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus in the rock as energy source. Okay, iron. So iron's also going to be necessary for life. Hydrated greigite, iron sulfide. Similarly, certain forms of microbial life can produce greigite. Combination of these minerals, which appear to have formed by electron. The combination of these minerals, which appear to have formed by electron transfer reactions between the sediment and organic matter. So this is why they think it might be a sign of there having been life on Mars at one point, is because you often see these minerals. You often do, not always, but you often do see them when you have electron transfer reactions between inorganic and organic matter. So in other words, between non-living sediment, rock, dirt, whatever, and living organisms matter. Is a potential fingerprint potential, which could be reactions to produce energy for growth. The minerals can be generated abiotically. So the minerals can also be generated abiotically. Abiotically means, so breaking down the word here, the etymology of the word. Bio means life, biotically, so relating to life, right? But when you add a in front, the prefix a always negates the rest of it. So when it says, if it would have said biotically, that would mean it's of life, it's like life. But because you have an A in front, it means not like life. So the minerals could also be generated from things that aren't alive. That's also possible. It's not, we don't know one way or the other yet. Okay, well, I mean, I can skim through more of this, but it's basically going to keep saying the same stuff. Maybe get down into, let's look at this chart really fast. This might be interesting. Oh, I just realized you guys can't even see my screen. All right, hold on a second. Whoops, wrong one. Here we go. I was reading all that. You guys had no idea. Okay. So I guess this is their process. So first, level one, they detect a signal known to result from a biological activity. I don't know what that means. That's very loose terminology. Level two, contamination ruled out. Oh, okay. So level two, the next step in their process is they're trying to rule out any other possible explanation. They make sure that, okay, we found some minerals here that look like they could be the kind of minerals you see produced from living organisms. Okay. Step two, well, let's make sure that this wasn't, this didn't come from living organisms from Earth that contaminated our sample or contaminated the Mars rover before the Mars rover left Earth, and then the Mars rover carried those living organisms with it over to Mars, and then that's the reason why you saw what looked like maybe things that were produced by living organisms on Mars, because you carried it with you from Earth, right? And when I say carried living organisms, I mean microscopic organisms, germs, bacteria, viruses, things of that nature. So they needed to rule that out. So it looks like they ruled that out. Level three, demonstration or prediction of biological production of signal and environment of detection. So this part is now they're looking at, okay, we ruled out that it came from anything from Earth. So level three is, well, is there like a way for us to explain chemically how a living organism would produce these minerals? So they might look at, okay, when a simple virus organism, ingests phosphite from the atmosphere or from the environment, and then it consumes it, and it creates these chemical reactions within the organism, and then the waste product that the organism gives off is this, right? So they want to look at, okay, is there a model that we can form that would explain how these mineral formations we saw on Mars could have been created by a living organisms? And probably what they did here was also the opposite too. Okay, is there a non-living organism chemical process that could have produced this as well? Let's create those different models and see what are the different ways that you can produce these minerals in nature. Okay, we know that we can produce these kind of minerals in nature, let's say, just making up a number here, in these 4 different ways. Maybe 3 of those ways are biological, they involve an animal or a simple organism, and one of them is just like something that would be produced first via just regular chemical reactions between like just non-living matter. So now they have 4 different models of how it can be produced, and that helps them start to narrow down, okay, looking at these 4 different models, can we rule out any of these and try to isolate which one is the one that we've arrived on by default? Like all the other ones don't make sense. This is the only one that makes sense, right? So that's probably what they were trying to do here at level 3. Level 4, all known non-biological sources of signals shown to be implied. See, that's exactly what I meant. So stage 4 is they're trying to knock out, okay, can we describe it from a non-biological source? So they try to rule that out. And then level 5 is additional independent signal from biology detected. I'm not sure what level 5 means here, to be honest with you. Independent biosignature, alternative hypothesis eliminated. Additional independent signal from biology detected. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Level 6, future observations that rule out alternative proposed after original announcement. Okay, so I think what they're saying here is after they did their research and they, tried to test alternative theories of how this could be produced, they present the results, maybe they come up with some new ideas after they present the results. Oh, guys, we already published this, but you know what? I just had an idea. What if it was actually these minerals were actually made this way? Let's go back and let's test that now. Or they get feedback from the public. Now they open it up to the larger scientific community. And, you know, like they say, 2 heads are better than one, 1,000 heads are better than two, right? So you put it in front of all these other scientists, the peer review scientific process, and you get some new scientists that come along and go, hey, we looked at your study, but did you guys consider this? Or did you consider this? Or maybe here's an alternative explanation. So, okay, you guys gave us a lot of new ideas. Let us go back to the drawing board and let's test those ones now and see if any of those explain it. So level 7, independent follow-up observations of predicted biology in the environment. Independent follow-up observations of predicted biological behavior. I'm not sure what that means, but you get the general gist of how they went through the process of trying to eliminate other explanations. So basically, it sounds like they tried to eliminate the biological explanation for these mineral formations, but they couldn't do so. And so now they're like, okay, there is a very real possibility that maybe it was formed through some kind of simple living organism that existed millions of years ago. But we still want to do further research just to make sure. Okay, all right. Anyway, so there's that whole story. All right, what am I doing on this mission? Oh, I think I gotta kill these robots and take their force field generator. Or is it this? Maybe it's this thing. No? The hell are these force field? Oh. Always forgetting to heal myself. Always. Holy shit, this dude's blowing me the fuck out. Okay, that didn't really help. Let's pull up something. Maybe there's something we can react to. Something a little bit lighthearted. I said what I wanted to say about politics for the day, so I don't really want to like think or talk about that too much, but what is going on here? Oh, lolly stuff. What is this?
owing to abusive behavior from an older half-brother. Despite writing a lengthy diagnosis list, the physician characterizes Andy's cognitive and behavioral abilities as mostly unremarkable for a boy of his age. This was one of the last times that Ditch would be described by anyone as unremarkable, and over the next 3 decades, he would work to cement his status as one of the most prolific deviants in internet history, projecting
I've never heard of this guy
from
before.
family feuds to fetishes for online attention, while also spending years on a campaign trying to convince everyone in his life that he has autism and fighting all of those who dare to doubt him. With behavior that was
Like literally fighting people or what?
then repulsive, then deplorable, but never conventional. This is Andrew Ditch, the Diaper Diaries.
Never a dull moment. The Diaper Diaries.
But before I go any further, today's video is brought to you by Turkey.
By the way,
Shop. We have this new Epic Gym t-shirt. All right, they're already almost gone, so if you want to pick it up, now's your last chance.
it's okay. Boost those numbers up, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. I want to make my own merch, right? I got a designer's eye. I could actually make some cool T-shirts and shit. But you gotta give me the numbers to make it worth the time. Okay. I have new abilities since the last time I played. Oh, and you know what? I haven't chosen any of these yet, have I? Deliverance applies. Oh, I don't think I remember all these skills. Which heals the target over 12 seconds. Heals up to 2 friendly targets for... after casting Deliverance, you are granted haste, making your next Deliverance instant. This effect, I don't know what Deliverance does, but okay. Heals a friendly target for this much. Okay, interesting. Making your next Deliverance, this effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Oh, okay. 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010. So probably in like PvP this would be useful. In PvE, in PvP, that kind of seems like it might take a while. Deliverance applies sustained aura. I kind of like this one because I can heal them while I'm like recharging or doing other shit. They're also getting like a little bit of passive healing, so I can kind of like focus on other shit. Clouds the mind of your enemies, instantly lowering their threat by a moderate amount. Benevolence increases the movement speed of the target for 50%. Benevolence has a 50% chance to cause your rejuvenate to tick twice. What is rejuvenate? The hell is rejuvenate? I like how they don't explain shit. Immediately heals a target for plus an additional over 9 seconds. Okay, so this causes you to rejuvenate to tick twice. What the hell does tick twice mean? Am I supposed to know what this means? Bastards. What does Force Mend do? Immediately restores to you, cannot be used on others. Okay, pretty based. Put this right here. Clouds the minds of your enemies, instantly lowering the threat level. Okay, so if we want to escape quickly, the problem is like my escape abilities are like right here. Oh, we'll do this actually. Because I like to have them grouped together, so like all the escape stuff is like all here. All the healing stuff is like here. Okay. Alright, Kaizen, go do your thing. Go fight some people. Go draw their, what do you call it? Go draw their threat or whatever.
It's a very epic gem shirt that I know all of you guys are going to be fiending for because, let's be honest, the average physique of a Turkey Tom viewer is just, I mean, you guys are strong. When you spend all day watching YouTube, you're strong, and I'm strong. I'm not fat. And we also have these Stop Gooning hats in stock, all right? I've seen a lot of you guys out there gooning.
I dig the energy.
And frankly, because you watch my videos, I won't call you.
Bro, what the hell?
What you're doing, I have to disapprove.
Getting my ass kicked over here.
Note, though, I really appreciate everybody who has bought the
God damn.
in this drop and in the past because I put a lot of time, energy, and money into the merch, and being able to sell the merch makes it so that we don't have to take other sponsorships.
I'm curious about something. I need to upgrade my computer. I'm looking for a 3080 right now, RTX.
If you're not inclined to purchase either of them, then
and they're expensive. I was debating for a while to get a PS5 or to get a upgraded graphics card for my computer. And I figured the computer would be more versatile. I feel like the PS5 is already on its way out within the next year, and there's like barely anything I want to play on there other than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Rebirth is pretty graphically demanding, but I saw that you can play it on a 3080 at 1440p, which is all I really care about. I don't really know why I would need to play it on 4K. Like, am I going to have a monitor that's like this big in front of me? Like, come on. But 3080s, so 3080s are still pricey. Like, I got to pay like upwards of $250, maybe even $300. And I was like, man. Then I looked at the PS5 prices, and they're still like $500. And I'm like, how? After all these years, is a PS5 still $500? It has no games. What are you paying for? It doesn't even look good. This might be a bit of a hot take, but I don't like the way the PS5 looks. I never have. It's actually one of the things that kept me from buying one. I thought basically all the other past PlayStation consoles have looked good, but the PS5 has not. So the PS1 back in the day, okay, it's not the sexiest looking thing, but like it's of its generation. It's not offensive looking by any means, and it looks, you know, classic. Okay. Then we get to the PS2. Okay, the first one, the blue lettering is a little bit too much, but otherwise, like if you took that away, you know, it's got kind of, it's almost a bit of a minimalist look. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of like a mid-century modern, not shelf, but entertainment console. Like with the kind of slatted, see what I mean? Like with the slatted like fascia, whatever you want to call it. Of course, it's in black, it's not in brown. And then you get the slim model, and the slim model is even more like minimalist and just kind of like simple, sexy. Not sexy necessarily, but like completely non-offensive, completely just, it just looks sophisticated, buttoned down, and just normal. Okay, and then we get to the PS3. Okay, the first version that came out kind of got dated at like pretty quickly. When it was first released, I think everybody thought it looked really cool. Yeah, it looks a little bit out of style now, out of touch now. But initially it was pretty solid design-wise. But the slim model looked really good. Again, very minimalist, very, you know, non-offensive, very, like, this looks good at pretty much every angle. It doesn't look bad at any angle. Look at this. Very sleek, very sophisticated looking. There was, what was it, the PS3 Pro or whatever the hell? What is this one? What is this one called? Pro Slim? This thing, I hardly even saw any of these, but I thought it didn't look good. And it's funny because what throws it off is that you have, in the middle region, you have like this slatted texture here, which on its own would have been fine if not for them also recessing this part of it here. Or if you were going to do it, and I don't know why this is the case, yeah, if you were going to do it, there was a way to make this work, but it's too much. It looks like it's got too much going on. Actually, from this angle, it doesn't look bad. But I feel like almost every other angle, it doesn't look very good. Honestly, it looks like it's broken. It looks like somebody like punched it and the panel like broke and fell inside. Okay. Why can't I find any good pictures of this thing? Okay, and then we had the PS4. The first release of it, this was an okay design. The issue was that you had the like shiny half here and then the matte half here. And part of the reason it doesn't work is because you would almost want to carry this shiny surface all the way around, but it only goes over the top cover, so it looks cheap. It looks like you slapped that part on and just forgot about the rest of the console when you did so. This angle looks okay because the shiny material, whatever, looks a little bit more matte from this angle. But from most other angles, it just looked tacky. It looked like one random corner was slapped on with a different coloration, or like when you get your car into a car accident and you replace one panel and the panel doesn't match the rest of the body of the car. That's what it looks like. But then you get the slim model, which is what I had, and the slim model, it looks sleek. It looks mid-century modern. It looks like it could fit in brutalism. It looks like it could fit in mid-century modern. It's minimalistic. You have the Pro version, which is kind of just like 3 tiers of that same style, but then you get the PS5, and they decide for whatever reason we're gonna go to white and black now. What does this blend in with? It doesn't blend in with anything. It looks so out of place in almost every other application. Like, there are certain aesthetic styles that would work with this, but it's so specific. Like right here, this aesthetic style works with it. If you got like these kind of like white plants, like the kind of like a clean girl aesthetic, but like everywhere else, it doesn't really match. The white is too high contrast against everything else. Right here, it looks good, but it's like they chose the furniture and the plant and the TV and everything to make the place. Everywhere else, it looks kind of weird and out of place. Like right here, it stands out too much, and it looks like the kind of desktop computer cases that you would see in the early 2000s. Desktop case 2000s. What would you call this style? Like this kind of shit. Like way too much going on. A little bit too much organic contouring and curvatures. And high contrast like color accents. You have some booba right here. No, this isn't what I'm talking about. I need that edgy. What the hell is this? Let me see. Edgy CPU case. Oh, this one is sexy. Holy crap. I want to look for a new computer case. Oh, look at this one. I got taken away on a tangent. This looks fucking cool. Look at this shit. What the fuck? It's probably too small, I bet. Mini ITX. I forget, do I have a mini ITX? Let me see. Mini versus micro. Or I have ATX because I have an AMD chipset. I think I have micro ITX. I don't believe I have mini. Yeah, I believe I have micro because I have 2 GPU slots on mine. But like this, stuff like this, or like this is what the PS5 reminds me of. Or this. What the fuck? Oh my god, did they actually make a computer case? That's kind of cool. Or like this kind of design aesthetic of the early 2000s. Like it's no. No. Okay. But man, I like the holy let me go back to this. This looks fucking cool. This looks nice. This looks like some retro like I'm gonna have to upgrade my computer case at some point here. Whoa, $200 for that? This one looks really pretty too. This looks like an old record player, or not like a record player, but like some kind of like music equipment that you'd find in like the early 2000s, late 90s. Okay, alright, anyways, this looks cool too. Anyways, PS5 is just too much. And then I thought to myself, like, It looks better in the gray actually. It's the white and black that really, but even then, just the curvature of it, it's too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the style is too specific. I feel like when you're designing consumer electronics for a broad audience, you want to create things that have like they fit in everywhere. They have broad appeal. They're gonna like appeal to most people. So for example, look at the iPhone. Why does the iPhone, realistically, if we look at the iPhone is always just a beveled fucking rectangle with not much else going on. It's pretty minimalistic. But why? Because it doesn't it doesn't appeal so specifically to any one style or group that it alienates everyone else. It can fit in anywhere. You can adapt it to whatever style you want it to. This is too specific. This style is a very specific style. I actually really prefer, as silly and weird as it might sound, right? This just literally just a cube, this monolithic cube. It looks better. It blends in more. You can put this in a room, the Xbox one, anywhere in a room, and people won't even bat an eyelash. It'll just blend in with the furniture, blend in with the other stuff that you have around there. Why? Because it looks like it could be an air purifier. It looks like it could be any other random, electronic device. It looks like it could be like a candle warmer. But you see the PS4, and it's immediately going to stand out anywhere you put it. People called it sexy and everything, and on its own, sure, it might be, right? But the issue is that it needs to blend in, it needs to fit in people's home decor. And it's so specific in terms of its aesthetic styling that it doesn't really fit in most places. And I was holding out, like, okay, maybe we'll make a slim model. They made a slim model, and it doesn't look any, it just looks the same. So, I don't know. What does the PS6 look like? Do we have any images? Nope, we don't. Alright, moving on.
Now back to
Oh, my bad. That's what I was going to look at. I wanted to see the price trends for 3080. Price trend. Okay, so the price has really come down. Interesting it was, holy shit, when they first launched these. These are $2,000 graphic cards. Holy crap. Okay. So, right now my budget's tight. The reason my budget's tight is because I'm basically having to pay rent 3 times this upcoming month. I'm paying rent at the current place that I'm living at. I have to pay for the remainder of the month that I'm here in October. But then I have to put down a security deposit, which is the security deposit is equal to the rent of my new place. And then I have to pay for the first month's rent of my new place. So I'm basically paying rent 3 fucking times next month. So it's like any other normal month, I can afford to just, bam, buy a GPU real quickly. But it's like I'm really trying to be frugal and like buy it as cheap as possible because I'm really tight on cash this month.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
How
Andrew
about
would
now?
spend the remainder of his winter at the facility before being discharged in March of 1993.
Okay, I'm
returning
actually
home
going to try
and
to play the
resuming his
healing role.
education. However, this was short-lived, as a few months later, he would be readmitted once more after assaulting his older brother by the name of Joe. This time, the record would show an even more troublesome childhood for Ditch.
Oh, they're
His
actually
mother,
shooting.
Janet, experienced multiple health complications during pregnancy, whose parents were struggling financially and were clashing over intrafamilial issues, who had experienced abuse from an early
Awesome.
age, and whose attendance of schools and
I
developmental
gotta wait 3
programs
minutes.
would regularly end with reports and diagnoses. His parents claimed that Andrew's problem began around the age of 4, but it's not hard to see that many of the probable causes were present in his early childhood, and to everyone's concern, he was not growing out of it. The referral documents no longer seemed to view Andrew as merely another routine patient, with reports.
You know what he really needed? This is what he really needed. Okay, hold on. I'll show you right now. This is what he needed. He needed proper ADHD treatment.
Drug-free treatment for children with attention deficit disorder. This treatment is fast and effective and doesn't use harmful drugs. Watch closely as I apply treatment to the first child. Sit down and study! Sit down and study! Stop crying and do your schoolwork! If you would like more information,
Obviously, I'm joking, right? But I mean, that's how people used to think in the past. Like, we didn't have names for these, you know, mental idiosyncrasies back in the day, and people didn't identify them, so people just thought like, oh, this kid just has like an issue, he needs discipline, you need to beat your kid and stuff like that. I'm laughing, but like seriously, they used to do stuff like that back in the day. It wasn't good.
Being placed on admission that they viewed him to be a risk to others and himself, with more psychological tests required due to primitive thinking. The analyzing physician raises concerns over his perception of his own actions, stating that he has a thinking style which brings psychotic process into question, but ultimately concluding that it was unclear at this stage whether this was really a form of psychosis. He would again spend a few months under hospital supervision before being released back into the world with a diagnosis, attending a different school that served children with special learning needs. This didn't really help though, as a month later, he would be readmitted after threatening to kill his mother in a series of dissociative episodes, after he claimed to see his half-brother firing a gun with his pants pulled down. This report, although not entirely negative about his nature, is the first where his delusional thinking pattern is mentioned with more certainty, with the doctor reporting that Andrew is delusional about his perpetrator, assumedly Michael, stalking him. With the history that he possesses, it's not a surprise that someone of that age might be struggling with delusions. But in the report, the doctor seems concerned that the parents are enabling these
Actually,
delusions,
why am I
and
doing all
amongst
this?
other things, this would require immediate treatment. Over the next few months, Ditch would go through
Shit.
multiple courses of therapy and interviews, which would result in a final diagnosis of 4 separate behavioral diagnoses, along with chronic asthma. These included PTSD, which I assume you're all familiar with, oppositional defiant disorder, which is often found in children who are openly hostile to authority figures, expressive language disorder, which affects people who struggle to put their thoughts into words, and psychosocial stressors, a broader description of environmental factors that can cause emotional distress and fragility. In this case, his past trauma. Looking at Andrew's childhood is not my idea of a good time. The details are revealing, and you can see the roots of his toxic and self-destructive behavior. Unfortunately, all of this is relevant to what happens later in his life, and
Oh, I see what happened here. This whole time I thought I had to fight that group of enemies.
This is the last time
That's like a challenge mini boss kind of area. I thought they were in front of the thing that I had to activate. It's actually right here. These are probably more normal level enemies.
Andrew's adolescence is riddled with continuous records of his trips into medical centers and mental hospitals for various reasons, many of which remain undisclosed. It's also highlighted by Andrew's own accounts of extremely unhinged behavior, such as poisoning his father's coffee with stool softener.
You know, there was one time Andy did, you know, put Miralax. No, not Miralax. I don't remember what
This
it
kid
was.
sounds psychotic though.
And my dad's coffee went at 6, like at
That's a normal thing to do, right? Who hasn't done that? Come on now.
As we'll later find out, I'd take everything Andrew says with a grain of salt, but it was clear that his behavior was not improving. And by April 2002, after a string of violent outbursts against his family, he wound up in enough trouble to find himself back where all of this started, the West New York Children's Psychiatric Center. Further assessments were carried out on him, and this time the reports were equally damning, emphasizing his pattern of mental, social, and sexual deviance, including an interest in diapers. He was discharged with an even longer list of mental illnesses, with psychologists drawing parallels between his disposition and—
Jesus Christ. Hold on, what do we got here? Adolescent onset conduct disorder, Tourette's disorder, history of post-traumatic stress disorder, paraphilia. I don't know what paraphilia is. Let's see. Paraphilia. Okay, so sexual fetish, where you fetishize inanimate objects, I'm gathering. Okay, cluster B traits, borderline narcissistic, antisocial, morbid obesity. I like how morbid obesity is thrown in here. Hypothyroidism, those usually go together, right? History of asthma, allergy to dimetapp and dimetrol, acne vulgaris. What is acne vulgaris? Unureses. Loss of urine. Okay, so he used to piss himself. Allergic rhinitis. What the hell's rhinitis? Oh, I think I have rhinitis. Like, not seriously, but I feel like I do all the time. Like, I feel like I'm always dealing with, like, sinus pressure and stuff. Abstinent. Wait, what is his left testicles missing? Gastroesophageal reflux and tachycardia. Jeez, dude, imagine being this kid. This is why you shouldn't have kids, by the way. Like, imagine dealing with a kid like this. It seems like a huge pain in the ass.
Narcissistic, and antisocial personality disorder, which is commonly associated with psychopathic traits. He was eventually discharged in August, with the assessment concluding that he was ready due to his positive response to a structured environment, no signs of psychosis, presenting with articulate speech, and illustrating good judgment and insight that he must maintain appropriate behaviors in the community. However, many concerns were still harbored that this was a person who was seriously unstable and unable to exist in a functioning society. With the report
it's hard for me to imagine that he has all of these different symptoms. It feels to me, or issues. It feels to me like these are probably stemming from one underlying thing, and the issue is that they're not able to identify what that underlying actual issue is. And so then you wind up diagnosing all these like topical symptoms that are on top of it, or that stem from that issue. Where the hell's my... Oh, I don't have my other dude with me. Awesome. Okay, well, I better hit this while I can. I got it. Completed the mission. But at what cost?
Referencing his coercive, threatening, and manipulative nature, stating that he only became responsive to treatment when threatened with legal detention. It was clear that there was still the suspicion that...
What'd I tell you, right? He saw the South Park ADHD treatment. That's all he needed. No, I'm just kidding. It does make you wonder, though. Sometimes I see stuff like this, I wonder, like, was he being abused at home or something? Is that what's going on here? And these things all like kind of stem from that.
His best behavior for his own selfish purposes. From this report, psychologists believe that Andrew knows how to